Hey guys, my name is Juan. I am just one reader. And so yesterday, the lovely Reagan from Peruse Project posted a video about books that she believed should be adapted into movies or TV shows or some sort of visual media. So I wanted to copy her and tell you what I think would be very good options for adapting into a visual media. But I also want to give her video a twist. So I am also going to give you what I believe are 10 books that should never ever be adapted ever into anything that is not a book. Okay, so let's get on with the video. By the way, I have a lot of books to show you in this video, so I'm going to try and talk about each of the books very quickly, very briefly, without a lot of detail. Hopefully I will be able to make this in just one video, but if it is too long, then you will see the second part of the video with the second, part of books that shouldn't be turned into movies. So starting off with the books that I believe would make great visual media things like TV shows or movies or short films or miniseries, and my number one is obviously Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. All the way through this book, I was just thinking this would make a great movie, a very good movie, or a miniseries or something. I think this book would actually benefit from an adaptation. I think it would earn and it would gain a lot of things. I think the special effects would be crazy. All the visual challenges that the crew would have to take on for this adaptation would be really interesting to see. I just think this would be really interesting and really exciting. Moving on to number two, I chose two books by Mr. Dan Brown. This is Deception Point, and this is Digital Fortress. These are both thrillers. They are completely action-packed, with cliffhangers galore, and they are just incredibly exciting and fun, like everything that Dan Brown has ever written. This one has a lot to do with politics and technology, and this one is about technology and codes and encrypted messages and whatnot. They're just incredibly fun. I can totally see a miniseries or a series or even movies. Like, they've done pretty amazing jobs adapting Dan Brown's works into movies, so I think this would be excellent. Then for number three, I have Bird Box by Josh Malerman. This was such a thrilling, exciting, fun ride. I actually managed to read this in just one sitting, and that is not easy for me to do. This was just so gripping and so engrossing. I was completely immersed and just invested in the story, and I can definitely see this as a miniseries with a lot of cliffhangers, like a big cliffhanger at the end of every episode, so yeah, check this one out. For number four, I actually chose one of my favorite books from this year so far, and that is More Than This by Mr. Patrick Ness. More Than This is a really bizarre book. In many ways, it should not be adapted, but I think it would be really interesting. No spoilers, but this book is just really weird. It just has a very bizarre element of like sci-fi, dystopian epicness, and I think it would be amazing to see this play out, how they would do it. That's just my question. How could someone visually achieve this? Then for number five, I chose the Cormoran Strike detective novel series by Robert Galbraith, aka J.K. Rowling, which involves, it's made of The Cuckoo's Calling, The Silkworm, and Career of Evil. And I just think this would be really great feature films. I would love to see the characters in real life. I would love to see all of the plots come to life, and I think they would be really interesting to adapt because they would have to make them a lot more exciting and engaging than the books actually are, because I love the books, but they are a bit slow and character driven, and I think if they were to adapt them into movies, for example, they really should invent some kind of plot device or something to make them a lot more fluent and a lot more action-packed. Then for number six, I chose The Secret History by Donna Tartt. Have you ever seen the show How to Get Away with Murder? This is basically the same thing, but it's literary equivalent, and every time that I read this book, I was thinking, oh, I think I've seen this somewhere, and I was reminded of How to Get Away with Murder. And the same thing happened the other way around. Every time I watch How to Get Away with Murder episode, I think of Donna Tartt's The Secret History, and I think this would make an equally amazing series or film, and I would love to see the college, this sort of college environment and the characters and how they do what they do in this book, because that's a real plot twist. The Secret History. For number 7, I chose the Ascendance trilogy by Jennifer A. Nielsen. Honestly, I only read the first 2 books in the trilogy. I never finished it, but I thought this would make excellent movies because they're just very similar to The Hunger Games as a reading experience. There's just cliffhanger after cliffhanger after cliffhanger. The first book has an incredible plot twist in the end, and the second one is just as action-packed. And the first one is The False Prince, and the second one is The Runaway King. For number 8, I chose Fortunately the Milk by Neil Gaiman. This is a short story written for children, really. It has a lot of pictures, and it's a whimsical, funny, amazing story from Neil Gaiman, and I think this would be an amazing, like, children's short film or something, or like a cartoon feature film, something. Then for number 9, I chose one of my favorite trilogies of all time, and that is the Bartimaeus trilogy by Jonathan Stroud. The first one of which is The Amulet of Samarkand, the second one of which is The Golem's Eye, and the third one is Ptolemy's Gate. And these books are about London in a futuristic world where magicians rule the kingdom, they rule England, and they have the ability not of doing magic themselves, but basically what they can do is they summon the spirits, particularly the demons and genies and whatever, and they do magic for them. And it's incredibly interesting. It's very much along the lines of Harry Potter and Artemis Fowl, and they're just the most incredibly fun books to read ever. You should really try them out, and I think this would make incredible long films that would just be very similar to the Harry Potter movies, but with a twist, and I think audiences would go crazy about this. And last but not least, for number 10, I have Sharp Objects. This is the last and remaining Gillian Flynn novel that hasn't been adapted yet, and they have done excellent jobs with adapting her other 2 novels, Gone Girl and Dark Places, so I think Sharp Objects should be just as equally addictive and dark and twisted and wonderful, and I would love to see the cast that they chose for this adaptation. Okay, so now moving on to the second part of the video, I'm going to show you 10 books or series that I believe should never, ever, under any circumstance, be adapted into another format that is not literature. Basically, the same reason goes for all of the books that I'm going to mention, which is some things are just not suited for a visual media. Some things are just made for a literary format. They are supposed to be written down on paper, and that's the way they should stay. So here are the 10 books that I think should never be adapted into a visual format. Number 1, I have The Never-Ending Story by Michael Ende. This has actually been adapted into various movies and TV shows, all of which, in my opinion, have been absolutely disastrous and just not worth it. This is probably my favorite book in the entire universe. I read it every year, and I think this should never be adapted because the richness and the nature of the book are just pure literature. There's no way other than literature for this one. For number 2, I chose The Name of the Wind and the rest of the Kingkiller Chronicles by Patrick Rothfuss. I think this series is just so amazing and so beautiful because Patrick Rothfuss is such a great writer, so I wouldn't care about a visual adaptation. I would love to see it, but I think it's better if we just stay with the books. They're just wonderful. For number 3, I chose his Dark Materials trilogy by Philip Pullman. This is my favorite trilogy in the universe, and it contains The Golden Compass or Northern Lights, The Subtle Knife, and The Amber Spyglass. The first one of which, The Golden Compass, has been adapted into a movie, which is probably one of the worst adaptations I've ever seen. It's really awful, not worth your time. And they're actually turning the series right now into a miniseries, which hopefully will be good. But I just think this series is so rich and wonderful, it should just stay the way it is. For number 4, I have the Spanish wonderful novel The Shadow of the Wind by Carlos Ruiz Zafón. This is one of my favorite novels as well. It's a novel about books and book lovers, readers and writers, and it's just one of those literary books that bewitch the reader, and I just honestly cannot fathom, cannot picture it being something other than a book. It's just such a delicacy and such a gem as a book that I just don't see how it could exist otherwise. For number 5, I chose another one of my favorite books, and this one is The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt. Same thing for this one. It's just such a beautiful, beautiful, wonderfully crafted novel, so beautifully written, so delicate and profound and layered that it just belongs in the realm of literature. Number 6 goes for my favorite book of 2014, and that is The Truth About the Harry Quebert Affair by Joel Dicker. This is a mystery. It's really action-packed and really fun, so in a way, it would be kind of fun to see it develop as a miniseries maybe, but honestly, I think this book is so enchanting with the words, and the way that Joel Dicker writes is very specific for book lovers and people who enjoy reading and writing, so I think this one would just be this would just work so much better the way that it is as a book than as another visual thing. Number 7 goes to Furman by Sam Savage. This is another book for book lovers. It's all about nostalgia, the joy of reading. It's about attachment. It's about love. It's about the human condition, humankind. And it's just a wonderful story about feelings, and this one to me is just all about the feels, and I don't think someone could ever adapt this beautiful little story into a visual media because they would just be unable to translate all the emotions, so I think this one is just fine the way it is. For number 8, I chose The Girl Who Circumnavigated Fairyland in a Ship of Her Own Making by Catherine M. Valente. Basically because even though this book is really visual in a way, it's really whimsical and crazy and eccentric, I think that the most amazing, most wondrous thing about this book is the writing itself. Catherine M. Valente is a wizard or a magician or a sorceress of words, so there's no way that they should make a movie or anything out of this, because we would lose the best thing that this book has, which is writing. Number 9 is The Ocean at the End of the Lane by Neil Gaiman. This book for me was just a haunting experience. It was dark, beautiful, twisted, electrifying. There's something about this book that I cannot quite place. I cannot quite describe or pinpoint, or something that escapes me. And I think that feeling is exactly what you cannot really translate into a TV show or a movie. So I think that the feeling and the emotion that this book gives you, the reaction that it gives the reader, that's just priceless. And last but not least, I have number 10, There But For The by Alice Smith. This is one of my favorite books this year, and it's just wonderful. It's absolutely impossible to adapt this into anything really, not even a theater play, because the way that Alice Smith writes is just a play with language. She plays with words, with spelling, with punctuation, with grammar. She just shows you her skill with the English language, and she creates a story that sometimes is quite nonsensical, and sometimes more often than not, it's just brilliant. And I absolutely love this book, although there's no way to adapt it. So there you go, guys. That was my video on the 10 books that I think would make great movies and the 10 books that should never ever be adapted or tampered with. The lesson, or what I think is really important here, is that we should just acknowledge and recognize that there is a reason why some things are just better suited for the written form and some things are better suited for a visual format. I think that's just the way that things are. It's in the nature of the writing, or in the nature of the characters or the plot or whatever. But there's just some stories like this one that would never be plausible as a visual thing, whereas there's just some other stories that would be incredibly engaging and interesting to see visually right before your eyes. So thank you very much for watching. Feel free to comment, like, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video.